Grown food. Grown food. ASC got produce. ASC about to go cool.
Welcome to Food Moves the World podcast. I'm the host, Nicole. Thank you for joining us today, Ayolonda.
Thank you.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Good. Can you introduce yourself to people that may not know who you are?
Yes. My name is Ayolonda Bandele, and I don't know what to say about myself. I run a company called Black Family Blueprint with my husband. I'm a multimedia artist. I'm a homeschool mom. I'm an activator and a connector in the community. I'm a doula. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know what to say.
You can share some, right? 'Cause we might have to do a part two to get it all through. But yeah, so everything that it is that you do, what inspired you, as growing up, like to get into all those different areas?
Oh, I always say those areas, most of them found me. I wasn't really looking for them. When I grew up, I was a hooper. My whole goal was to just play ball somewhere. I just wanted to, I didn't care if it was the community center, the little hole on the block somewhere. I was just trying to shoot a basketball into a hoop. So it's a lot of things I didn't imagine for myself. But somehow along the way, they found me. The thing that inspires me most that I can say has always been intact for as long as that I can remember is seeking justice. Like, always rooting for our people, always making sure that Blackness was recognized. I could think back to elementary school incidents there. I could think to middle school and even high school and beyond. There's always been an element of I am Black and you will recognize me. And so my work, all of the work that I do, centers on the liberation of Black people, internally, within ourselves, and externally.
Wow, where did that come from? Just like, this is me, this where it is. Like, was it your family or something you just was like, this is it?
I think that part of it has been a spiritual assignment. And part of it, I grew up in the golden era of hip hop. And so when I grew up, there was dashikis and Black Power medallions, peace medallions. Like, there was just this element of Afrocentricity in hip hop that really fed me. So that's part of it. The other part of it is that my grandmother named me Ayolonda Camila. It's an African Islamic name. And I always tell her she knew me before I knew myself, because my name really aligned me to who I am. And so there's this spiritual element of it, but there was also the environmental pieces. Growing up, being one of the only Black girls in school, having like a real Black name. My mom was a hair braider in the community, so I always had all these intricate hair braided designs and just always stood out because of my Blackness. Being the tallest girl in school, there's a lot of different things that always showed me how Black I was. And it wasn't always good. A lot of it was negative as well. But the environment just created this space for me to have to learn how to be proud of who I was and how to fight.
That's a lot. You didn't even share that you was a hooper.
Oh.
So they're like, oh, a hooper too? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So, as a line of everything you do with the work, like, I could just be like, okay, tell me a little about this. But somehow you said, like, your work all found you, right? Like, it just made itself there and it became a part of you.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's sometimes we're given assignments that we don't like, right? What makes you, stepped into those positions and just embody it and made it a part of you, your life, and with, like, homeschooling your kids and everything in there?
First and foremost, I am a curious human being. And so I'm the person who goes to the museum and touches things I'm not supposed to touch. Like, that's just naturally me. And so I can think about, I was about 15 years old. A person younger than me was pregnant. And so I really wanted to be there for her. So me and my cousins were there during the birth of the baby. And I was like, wow, like, it was just something that felt really natural to be in that supportive role. And then after that, more and more and more births from friends and family members just put me in this position where I said, there's something to this and I really want to do it. And eventually, when I was about 21, I had an opportunity to be trained as a doula. So that's how that found me. And in terms of the activism work, like I said, there's always been this element. There's always been an opportunity to fight for something. Always. Just growing up where I grew up at, the world being what it is, there's always been an opportunity to fight. Now, I will say my fight has not always been aligned with justice and freedom. Like sometimes my fight was just some real dumb hood stuff, and it was that too. So it was like really transforming that into something positive. When I think about my work with Black Family Blueprint, I think about what it means to be a Black parent and the challenges that come with being a Black parent, and looking at the challenges that my parents experienced, parenting me, and the solutions that we need to be able to parent our children from a space of healing. And so I set out on a journey to not only not parent my children the way that I was parented, but to find why we parent the way that we parent, just really digging down to the roots. Again, just curious. Why do we act the way that we act? Why we talk to our children the way that we talk to our children? Why it always gotta be some black, sit your black down. It's always something. Like, why does the blackness get pulled into it when we're disciplining our children? Just curious. Finding solutions for my own family that will then impact the whole community. And so I would say it's always been like that for me. Like, do for yourself what you do for others. And so anything that I do, it is for myself and my family, but it's for all of us at the exact same time.
You touched on a lot. I want to go back to where you're talking about a doula, and the work of a doula, like the importance of a doula. I'm not sure that everybody do know what a doula is and the work that is done while having it. Can you share some of that and the importance of it?
Yeah, in its easiest form, I would say that a doula is a birth partner. But a doula is so much more than just a birth partner. A doula partners with a parenting person, a pregnant person, prior to the actual birth. And so the goal of a doula is to really bring ease and understanding to the process of later pregnancy, like the third trimester and birth. And so that can come in a variety of ways. Most people know birth doulas who are there during the birth, really supporting the parents and whoever surrounding the parents during that process. A doula, there's also postpartum doulas who support after the baby, and that's the part that I think a lot of people miss, the importance of having a postpartum doula, having somebody there with you at home during that transition of welcoming a new baby into the home, supporting the rest that the mother and the family needs. Not just the mother, it really is the family, supporting the rest that's needed, making sure that people are eating, making sure that people are sleeping, having an opportunity to shower without trying to put the baby, in the little bassinet in the shower with you. There's so many things that a lot of us don't know about having a baby until we have the baby. And then it's like, man, I wish somebody would have told me about this part. That postpartum doula supports that part. So there's birth doula who's going to be with you through that third trimester. Maybe they might attend doctor's appointments with you to just help you understand what's happening. They support you with knowing what to expect when you're expecting, what to expect during the process of labor. There's different stages of labor. So just understanding what all of those things actually mean, all the technicalities and words that we hear coming out of the doctor's mouths, that we might not understand. A postpartum doula will help support that. We don't actually catch the babies. We don't provide medical advice. So we're not clinicians in that way, but we are there as a knowledgeable resource to support the family with making decisions, creating birth plans, and bringing some ease and calm in that process of labor.
You hear that?
It's important.
Yeah, because I'm like
it's
postpartum
Yeah.
doula. I'm like, oh, the afterwork sounds like the that help that you need when you waking up
That's-
at 3 in the morning and got to get
Listen.
back up at 7 and
Yeah.
your eyes is like, go to bed.
No, I'm telling you, it's so true. With my first son, my iron dropped really, really low. Lost a lot of blood. They wanted to give me a blood transfusion. I was like, I don't want nobody else's blood in my blood. I just had a whole little meltdown about that whole situation, and I opted out of a medical procedure that I really needed. So that means that I went home really with zero energy at all. I could barely carry myself to the bathroom. My husband's job wouldn't give him no time off of work, so he literally got me home. He had just started this new job. They wouldn't give him no time. Dropped me off at home with the baby and had to run to work. So I'm like, dang, I got to figure this out. Then people were coming to the house, too. I didn't know how to ask for help. And I was just in a situation. A postpartum doula would have really been able to support that situation and possibly even give me information about blood transfusions to ease my nerves about having that process done, which was a really necessary medical intervention at that time. And so, yeah, it was that moment right there where I was like, oh, I get it now. It makes so much sense to me now. And then there's a whole bunch of other things, and I'm not even going to go into the little details of it, but there's a lot of little things that have big impacts that we just don't realize that a woman's body goes through in that postpartum. So the postpartum doula can really know, again, what to expect and provide some solutions or some ease resources in those spaces for the whole family, not just the mother, for the whole family.
So do you connect with families in the community as a doula to give them that knowledge and support?
Yeah, at one point in time, I was attending births, and I worked really closely, actually, with the North High School parenting program and the Broadway school that's not there no more. So I worked hand in hand with those schools to provide doula services for mothers, for young parenting families. Now I'm providing what I call doula coaching. So I'm not attending births, but I am providing childbirth education, still supporting people in knowing what to expect when expecting, and help people get connected with birth doulas if they would like for someone to attend their birth. But after I had my own children, and I was working a full-time job outside of being a doula, because I've always been the community volunteer doula. I was like, this is just not sustainable for my family situation. I remember one of the last births that I had attended, it was like 36 hours. It was just long. And I was like taking vacation time off of work and leaving to go pick my children up from daycare, getting them settled with my husband and going. I mean, I was just like, this isn't sustainable. And that's the truth for a lot of doulas. It's a labor of love. Literally, it does not always pay the bills. A lot of doulas also have other jobs that they have to tend to. They also have their own children and their own families. And so it's really important on a state level and even a federal level that doulas don't have to jump through so many hoops just to be able to get paid for the work. Most of us do it because it's a calling. It's a spiritual calling. It's something that we're just deeply connected to, being birth workers. And most birth workers don't get adequate pay, especially when you're working within our population of Black folks who deserve to have the services but might not necessarily have the economic resources to pay a doula what a doula is worth for the time that goes into it. And it's not just that, like, part of it is a huge piece around access, knowing what a doula is, how a doula can support your family. There's the economic piece, but that's not always the issue. Like, there's a whole information gap when it comes to having healthy and safe pregnancies. And so there's a good number of organizations now. There's the Chocolate Milk Club. Dr. LaVon Moore is leading that out. There's Nubian Moms, and there's many more organizations that are dedicated towards making sure that Black women have access to birth work and birth workers both financially and then also as like an educational, informational resource, so that we know what our options really are, so that we can have better birthing outcomes.
Are these is this information shared like at doctor's appointments? When they give you that go home package after you figure out you're pregnant and after that first appointment as options?
I don't know. I would say there's also the African American Babies Coalition who they're offering community health workers now to walk with families who are pregnant or postpartum, I believe. And so I'm seeing more and more of these resources being integrated into our clinics, but it really just depends on what clinic you're going to. It really depends on your practitioner and how connected they are to what's happening in the community. There's progress being made. I can absolutely say there's progress being made. I don't know what clinics are providing that upfront information to families.
I'm like, this is a whole that's a whole conversation of itself, right? But you got so much stuff, you do so much work in the community. It's just wild me. Like your group that even I participated in, which was amazing. I don't know if we talking. It's cool to talk, right? Yeah. So your group that we are that I took part of, right? Like I didn't know much about it. I'm like, I'll join it or whatever, so informational, so impactful, and so necessary and needed. Like what like we need this, right? Like what made you and your husband decide to like put someone like that? And I'm like, I'll be talking to people, I'm like, you never heard of this? You never heard of this? And like, so like that, so I'm like, I'm so grateful to be a part of it, but I'm like, I think everybody needs to be a part of it, because it's just like, you only know what you know. And then when you're put in a space where you're able to think and challenge yourself and also let your little beings have a voice too,
that's right.
It kind of, it makes sense, right? Because you have to allow them to advocate for themselves too and not shut them down. But if you could speak on that some, because I'm always speaking on it, I promise you.
Oh, thank you. No, it was so good to have you, and we are going to have new classes coming up soon, so we would absolutely hope to have you back. You're talking about parenting against white supremacy, and parenting against white supremacy is a body of work that my husband and I developed to literally help us parent against white supremacy. Again, being curious about why do we parent our children the way that we do? Like, why am I showing up like this? How come I get this flash of something over my body when my child looks at me a certain way or talks back to me, or I see them acting a certain way in public? Like, where does that come from? How deep does it go? How come I said I was never going to whip my children, and then I find myself faced with a situation where I'm whipping my child, doing something I said I was never going to do? How did I get there, and why was that my only resource to deal with my child's behavior? So we went on this journey of really excavating why we do the things that we do, and how are we showing up as parents, and how the prevalence of white supremacy in this country has deeply impacted the way that we think about Black children. And the way that we think about authority, and the ways that we think about how authority is supposed to interact with the so-called underlings. Because that's really how it is. It's like, some of us believe we can treat a child anyway. We can talk to a child any way we want to because they're a child, as if children have no rights, or as if they have no humanity. So we just did some research. First off, looking internally, like, what's going on with us? Why are we here? And then really looking back to our Black scholars, our Black psychologists, Black sociologists, around what has been said about Black parenting, what's been said about racism and its impact, or racialized violence and its impact on Black families, and how do we create solutions for what has happened to us. Because first and foremost, we do recognize that nothing is necessarily wrong with us, but something has happened to us. And so we have to, in the best ways that we can, understand what has happened to us so that we can find our way out of it. And so we talk about white supremacy's impact on the Black family, and the impact on the Black family and its impact on Black children. But we also look at the level of personal responsibility that we have to be able to right ourselves in the ways in which we need to right ourselves. And so we came up with about 12 solutions of parenting against white supremacy, starting with self-care as being the foundation, and then looking at how we discipline our children. One of the ways that white supremacy is passed, excuse me, one of the ways that white supremacy is passed from body to body is from Black parent to Black child. It's one of the biggest ways that the levels of inferiority that we may experience is passed. And so we have to talk about that. How do we care for ourselves in a way that acknowledges that white supremacy has impacted us in this kind of way? And then how do we use self-care as our root to then discipline our children from a space of healing? So we don't necessarily talk about the gentle parenting. I know that's a whole thing. And I'll be watching these TikTok videos, gentle parenting videos, where they're like, Johnny, sit down, please. Johnny, I said, sit down. Johnny, I don't like when you hit me. You know, then Johnny, sit down. You know, then Johnny sit down. Right? You know, so we don't do the gentle parenting thing, but we do talk about what it looks like to have healing-centered parenting so that we're not creating patterns of trauma within our children. We look at how do we build cultural environments around our children and build cultural identity. We look at how we connect with other families, making sure that we're not parenting in isolation. And then there's many other things like reconnecting to the earth, which, you know, that's the work that y'all are doing with AFC. Like, how do you connect to the earth? How do we learn how to do the things that we used to do in terms of growing food and being able to feed ourselves and being connected to our earth through gardening, planting, agriculture, and so on and so forth. We talk about wealth building. There's a whole body of solutions that we have for parenting against white supremacy, really, in a sense, as some sort of blueprint for parenting. And then we also have Black Safe, which is an acronym for Secure Attachment for Empowerment, and that is all about the child development, how our children are developing, looking at our children from their stage of development as opposed to their age. Because a lot of times when we look at our children, we be like, man, you 10 years old, you know better than that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I was told, you know better than that, you know better than that. But knowing better is different than doing better. And so Black Safe teaches us what to expect from our children at certain stages of development, to take the age out of it, but to assess where our children are at in their development and to be able to... I
gotta stop you. What about a sneaky kid that know exactly what they're doing?
Oh, well, and that's the thing, like because they do know what they're doing. Yeah. It's not that they don't know what they're doing, but knowing better. Okay. And doing better still comes from different parts of the brain. So part of that is around are you doing this for survival? What is your child trying to get through when they're having this behavior? For example, let's just take a child that likes to sneak a bite off of a donut and blame it on a sibling. Of course they know what they're doing. Okay. Of course they know they're blaming their sibling. They're just trying not to get in trouble. And so we see that play out. Even in my own household, we see that play out all the time. And so it's really being able to call out the behavior, but also having consequences that match the behavior. Making sure that we're not getting into these power struggles with our children where we feel like we have to overly assert our authority over them to get them to comply with whatever it is that we're asking them to do. And understanding that it's a part of their development. Like adolescence, I have a 14-year-old at home right now. Oh my God, blessings to everybody who got adolescent children, boys at home. And it's just like, your brain just seems to be so scrambled right now. You know, like everything in their brain, in a sense, is it's undergoing such a huge transition. Their brains are undergoing such a huge transition that they're going to do a lot of things. They're going to say a lot of things that ain't going to make no kind of sense at all. And they will stand self-righteously on whatever it is that they did, and they will stand by it as if it is the law, and it won't make no sense to us at all. So there's a lot of that's going to happen too. That's all just tied to their brain development and their stage of development that they're in right now. So yeah, they do know what they're doing, but they can't break it down why. It's up to us to be able to coach them into the behavior that we want to see. And we do that through consequences. We do that through affirmations. There's a lot of different ways that we do that. Consequences aren't always harsh. Sometimes they're good consequences, rewarding or incentivizing the behavior that we want to see out of them, paying attention to the behavior that we want them to see, sometimes filtering out. Like, I'm a parent, I see everything. I see every little thing. My brain captures it all. I have to manage myself and make sure that I'm not calling every single thing out, because then you have this huge bucket of all the things that your child has done wrong, and they don't even know if they can do anything right anymore. So that also plays into some of that behavior as well.
See, I'm taking it in. I'm like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do this.
It's a practice.
Yeah.
I have to wake up and I have to remind myself every single day, this is a practice. It is not anything that you probably will ever feel proficient in, like you just got it. It's always going to be a practice. But being able, for me, the biggest transformation for me was managing my own emotions around my children's emotions and whatever it is that they're doing. When I can master my emotions through my 14-year-old's little hissy fit, he throwing about this or that, or my 11-year-old's little hissy fit that he throwing about this or that. When I can manage my own emotions through that moment, then I'm able to parent from a healed space. But if I'm letting their little temper tantrums throw me off, and they're yelling so I'm yelling, or they done got big emotionally so I'm getting even bigger to flex. If I'm trying to flex on my children, then that's not coming from a healed space. And so it always going to tie back to the parental self-regulation, and that is why that self-care is the foundation, because that's what we talk about. How do we regulate our own nervous system for our children in spaces where they can't do it? Because they can't. Sometimes they just can't. And so we have to be that resource for them. We got to sit in that discomfort. Sometimes we have to deal with what it feels like when they done talk to us out the side of their neck. Sometimes we got to just sit in that discomfort.
So what do you say when people be like, you let your kids like yell at you or things like that? Like how would you, or how have you dealt with that when someone seen your child basically expressing herself, you allow them to, and they like, why you ain't checking them?
Yeah, because somewhere, at some point in time in their life, being able to speak up and advocate for themselves is going to be extremely important. And so I would rather it happen with me so that I can help them cultivate the language of being able to express their emotions. So when they out here in this world, when they at school, dealing with their own levels of white supremacy in whatever spaces that they're interacting with, they know how to be able to do it efficiently. They know how to be able to do it articulately, and they know how to be able to do it in a way that's not going to cause them to have to show they tail. You know, that's how you know the old folks say, I'm going nowhere showing your tail. You know, so they're not showing their tail, but that they're actually standing from a valid position. When we add the yelling and the cussing and throwing stuff and just having a whole temper tantrum, like when we add all of that to it, even if you're coming from a righteous space, ain't nobody gonna receive that from you. So when my children are yelling and doing whatever they're doing, and I'm managing myself because they done said something sideways to me, I'm remembering they have to be coached on how to advocate for themselves, because sometimes they don't be wrong. It might be even me that did something that was just kind of off. Like, they don't be wrong. But again, it goes back to that coaching. So I'll tell somebody, look, I'm coaching them on how to be able to do this effectively, because it took me I lost a lot of jobs acting a fool because somebody did something wrong because I didn't know how to get it out in a way where I could be justified and understood and not create more negative consequences for myself. So it is a process of molding their character and molding them to be able to speak up for themselves. There's so many of us who don't know how to speak up for ourselves. But we'll flip some tables over real quick.
Get real angry,
we'll get real angry real quick. We'll fight real quick. But we don't know how to express ourselves. So parenting from a healed space allows our children some space to practice what it looks like to express themselves. And it allows us to coach our children in that process and help them say, ooh, you know what? When you said it that way, this is how I received that. Is that what you're really trying to say? Like, you really trying to say that to me? You know? And they're like, well, I'm gonna try to say it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so next time, here's how you say that. I don't like it when you do this, or when you do that, I feel this way about it. And so again, it's a practice and it's a process. But that's what I would say. I don't want no children who think it's okay to be yelled at, talked to sideways. I don't want my children to believe that it's okay to be hit if they make a mistake. I don't want my children to believe that it's okay to be abused if you make a mistake, or that you deserve to be hurt to make a mistake. I want my children to know that in life, we want to make as little mistakes as possible from the things that we've already learned, but we do want to make those mistakes so that we can learn. But like, once you learn it, you don't have to continue to make the same mistake. Once you learn, you don't have to continue to make the same mistake. But it's cool, you know, in your process of development. So I'm gonna coach you through this moment. We've had some tough moments this summer. We've had some tough moments this summer, and so it all ties back to
patience.
Yeah, patience and regulating ourselves. Trying to, you know, the biggest thing for me was, why do I feel so angry when my child raises his voice? Because the first question I can hear
that
in
trigger,
my mom's
right?
voice, it's like, who you think I don't know who you think you are. I don't know who you think I am. You know, It's like, it's immediate. Like, oh boy, you must have done lost your mind talking to me. You know, it's immediate. And so it's like, where does
You're
that
talking
come
my
from?
life.
Yeah.
Right?
And so it goes back many generations, and it's rooted in fear. It's rooted in survival. It's rooted in survival because if on the plantation, if we take it all the way back, if our child is running ragged on the plantation, that meant severe consequences in so many different ways on that child, on the parents, on the family, on everybody. And so we've had to develop these ways of being as a means of survival for ourselves. So that's the environment that I come from. I get it. Like, it ain't even no judgment. It's just time for us, I believe, as a people, to evolve and to transition to a different type of survival for our children. Yeah, because me too. Yeah.
Have you seen your kids practice that emotion when speaking to others? Like, oh, you did that and I didn't even have to say nothing. You wasn't wrong.
Yeah. It just don't happen at home. It happens everywhere else. It happens everywhere else.
And then they're looked at as smart mouth kids, right?
Even that. Like, see, my children are the children who I can't say you being smart. Because I'll be like, of course I'm smart. I'm an intelligent person. You know? So I have to be like, ooh, that's sassy. They do not like the word.
So you have to switch it up on them?
They don't like the word sassy at all. But what I'm saying is, like, the things that I teach them at home, I see them doing it in public. They just don't do it at home. They won't talk. They're not really going to talk back to other people. Not too much. But we did have, like I said, one of my children, we did have some stuff this summer where I was like, child, come on. Like, this is a summer program. Why am I getting calls home, you know? And so we've had to really work with, again, the language. How is it landing? Because that's really important. My children are homeschooled. That's another thing. So they going into these institutions for summer school. Like, this ain't it. Like, they talking to me like this, and, you know, I got one child, like, you gonna yell at me, I'm gonna yell at you, you know, so he not really feeling the type of communication that we have. Again, ties back to how we talk to children. It ain't just in our homes, it's at schools, it's in the community, it's in summer programs. We talk to black children any way we want to. Sometimes, some of us believe that, like, real deep, not even on the surface, but just in practice. That's what we do, you know, yelling all the time. And I just have children that is like, I deserve to be treated better than that. You're going to yell at me, I'm not going to listen to you because you can speak to me in your regular voice.
Why you got this job if you got to yell at me?
Yeah. And so then, you know, there's that pushback. And so, again, it's a constant process. My children need to know when it's cool to push back and when you got to fall back. You're going to push back or you're going to fall back? Which one? Like, you have to decide, but you can't push back on everything because then you're fighting all the time. And for my family, that's repeating the cycle of constantly fighting and never being able to lay down your sword. So push back or fall back. That's part of their learning process as they get older.
Right, connections. We talked about, well, we haven't talked about it, but how do I want to say that? So I know that we talked about like connection back to the earth with the food. How important you think it is for people to be knowledgeable about the food they eat, how it treats their bodies and things like that?
Oh, it's so important. Yeah, I was reading an article in the New York Times some months ago, now probably like the beginning of the summer. It was about a man who had received an organ. He was like the first person to receive a successful organ from a pig. A kidney. I think he received a kidney or a liver. I think it was a liver. It was a kidney or a liver. It was a major organ from a pig, right? And I was just really intrigued by this whole thing, and I started reading into it more, and I found out it was a black man. And it was also very much so rooted in a medical experimentation. But the spin on this story was that it could be a promising solution for black folks who sit on the organ transplant list for a very long time and often end up passing away from whatever the ailment is because they didn't get selected to receive an organ. And most of the time it's kidney. We know the kidneys are directly connected to hypertension. And so, I mean, I have family members who are functioning with very little kidney function at this time and like just right on the brink of dialysis because of the whole kidney situation. We also know diabetes is directly related to the kidneys as well. And then we have the whole issue with our livers, and a lot of that is tied directly to what it is that we're putting in our bodies. And so I think it's extremely important. So I was telling my husband, I'm like, yo, we finna be walking around here with pig organs. Like, if we don't start eating them right. And that's scary to me. And so, when I asked my grandma what they used to eat down south, in North Carolina, like, what did y'all eat? She like, my mom would wake up every morning, she would do a pot of greens, beans, and cornbread. She was like, there was no breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's just what we ate. And so I know some of us be like, oh, vegan, I could never be vegan, that kind of thing. But it's like this, we know it's in our bodies. We know how to do this. We know how to cook a good old pot of greens. Even if we put some smoked meat in there, beans and greens, we know how to eat that way. And we can grow those things.
Right.
And so I think it's all directly connected. But this ties back into when you come from a group of people that is constantly and persistently subjugated in the country or the spaces that they live in. There's constant destruction falling upon black families and black communities all the time. Food is absolutely a comfort. And any human being that is suffering will find any way to find comfort. Oftentimes for us it has been through our food. And so I think that we have to really reconcile that. We have to reconcile what it means to take things into our body. It's because food addiction is very real. Eating for comfort as opposed to eating to fuel your body is a very real thing. Addiction to sugar is huge. It's crazy. All the way to babies, giving babies Kool-Aid in their bottles, juice or soda in their bottles. It's
that
a
sweet
huge
Similac.
Yeah, right. All that sugar just in the baby formula. And I said breast milk don't taste that sweet. I'll tell y'all it ain't that sweet. But yeah, so returning to the earth, learning how to grow our food and remembering our ways of being is really, really important. And if we ask our elders, a lot of them will tell us about what we used to do. And I think that there were ways that we survived that were very healthy and that were very important and that were rooted in the earth. And I think that there's a lot of ways that we do have to reclaim. We got to go back so that we're not walking around here with pig organs. Now, unfortunately, the elder who received the pig organ, he did pass away. So eventually his body did reject that organ. but there's so much that we can do before it gets to that point that we have to continue. We have to continue the journey of thinking about what it is that we're putting in our body, why we're putting it in our body, and be curious. Curious about, like, dang, I ate a piece of cake and I ate another piece of cake. Now I done ate almost the whole cake. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why? What are we comforting ourselves from? And how do we lean into those spaces of discomfort and do it with support, do it with our cultural healers, do it with our therapists, to really get down to the root of what we're comforting ourselves from? Because I think that alone will help bring us into more of a space of balance. That level of mindfulness and that level of self-awareness when it comes to eating will bring us into some balance within ourselves, so that we can reduce and mitigate these chronic illnesses and diseases that we experience and that we see in our families. Because we getting younger and younger. Diabetes, we getting younger and younger. Hypertension, younger and younger. My great grandmother, she passed away when she was 46 or 47 from kidney failure. Right. So I'm in my 40s now.
Right. Scary.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just thinking pig organs. Y'all hear that? Pig organs. Like, who wants that?
Right.
Nobody.
Right. Especially if you don't eat pork. What you gonna do? You don't eat pork, but they got this pig liver available for a transfusion. It sounds ignorant, but I'm just saying, like, it's something to think about.
Like, yeah, it is
but
big.
That's your
big,
only
right?
option.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people don't think about our diets and the food we eat, because it's like, this is what I've been eating.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, well, yeah, I know my mom was sick, but this food is good. Like, not even rethinking about the food that we're putting in our bodies, or trying to make that connection with the food that we eat, and take that step to changing our food diets.
My little personal check for myself, because I'm speaking to myself, y'all. When I talk, I'm talking to myself, because I struggle as well. And so my question has been, does it make me feel good? And is it healthy? That's it. Like, it can be healthy and it can make you feel good at the same time. So finding what those things are. It's too many videos on YouTube that we could be watching to learn how to cook something that's delicious and healthy at the same time. So we have so much access to information now.
No excuse.
Yeah, there's no excuse. We gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable so that we can change.
Absolutely.
So if it's okay to feel uncomfortable if what you're doing is healthy. I tell my children this all the time. It's something that I really work towards living by. Does it make me uncomfortable? Yeah. But is it the right thing to do? If I could say yes to both of those things at the same time, then I know I'm on the right track.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're coming to an end, right?
Yes.
Today, conversation has been dope and amazing. I always end with a question, like, our legacy. What will you want to be remembered by?
Ooh, that's a good one. What I want to be remembered by. I am very well aware that, as people say, I am a spirit having a human experience right now, which gives me the ability to laugh at myself sometimes, because I'm like, being a human is just weird sometimes. But I just want to be remembered by my love for my people, and my solutions. I want the strategies and the solutions that we found, like with parenting against white supremacy, with healing-centered parenting, with what it really truly looks like to self-care. I want to be known, and I want to be remembered for that.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. This has been good.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
Good food. Good food. ASC got produced. ASC about to go cool. We gon'